I guess I met when I took a global business immersion course studying in Southeast Asia, and you were my professor.
And I was the lucky one that was able to be with you and 24 of your nearest and dearest peers at William and Mary. And it was such a special experience because we really had a chance to not only learn together, but it was really a living and learning environment.
Absolutely.
And many unexpected experiences.
Yeah, kind of, I guess, where we really grew as well in this immersion was a bunch of the people had to, we were on our way from Cambodia to Vietnam, and we had to.
That was the plan.
That was the plan. That was the plan. That was the plan. And our, I guess, we had to, fill our visas and everything. It was my first time properly ever filling out a visa before because I've never traveled to Asia or Southeast Asia or anything. But after leaving the lines in Cambodia for all students to go to Vietnam, one by one people started getting picked to the side because they had issues with their visa. And we were, I was just kind of in the line in the very back, going to everybody, just kind of joking, how could you mess up your visa, guys? We had so much time to plan this out because, they get to me and it turns out my birthday and my, my passport number were both wrong on my visa. So I guess I was going to be stuck in Cambodia along with Megan and Max.
Yes.
And, I guess Professor Rates had to go off, with the rest of the group to Vietnam. But then, you, Chris, Megan, Max, and I were stuck in Cambodia. Kind of just, we had to...
It was a good place to be.
It was a good place to be. But initially when we're in the Siem Reap airport, that was kind of scary. That was
tough.
That was tough.
We were the last flight out that evening.
Yeah.
There was nobody else left in the airport except us.
Yeah.
We didn't quite know how we were going to make it from the airport back to Siem Reap proper. I was already trying to think in my mind, okay, where will the kids sleep? What chairs are available for us in the airport? How can I feed them? What does this mean for us? And then we were fortunate enough to get the last 5 seats on a Spanish bus.
Yeah, on the Argentinian.
On the Argentinian, yes, that's
that
it.
Was so
yes,
much fun.
And away we went back to Siem Reap for another few days together.
Yeah.
And when I first met you, I think it's obvious from whoever meets you that you just have this bright light about you. And so when we were in the line in the airport, I was appreciating your positivity and, you were trying to make light of what was seemingly a difficult situation because this is something that we have planned for many months. And it's not as though you and I had just showed up in Thailand together on January 2nd.
Yeah.
We had met in September when we started taking the classes together with Professor Rates. And so having those course experiences and planning for what lies ahead, and then when we arrive, not necessarily being able to have the experience that we expected. I think that was one of the many instances that I was so impressed by you because I do think it would be hard. You were expecting to go from Thailand to Vietnam, or Thailand to Cambodia to Vietnam and back to Thailand. And we really made the most of it.
That was such a fascinating thing. I'm kind of curious about the professor's perspective. And you guys, because you and Professor Ray's worked tirelessly to organize an international trip for all of us in this phenomenal immersion. So kind of when the visas weren't working out properly, what was your thought process throughout that?
I was very heartbroken at that moment in time because we'd already had success getting into Cambodia. So we'd already went from Thailand to Cambodia. So we've already crossed the border once. And there were issues at that point too, but they could all be worked out when we were at the border. And for whatever reason, in this case, Vietnamese were very strict. Yeah. And, one wrong letter, one wrong date affected several of us. And it wasn't just the 3 of you. I mean, as you'll recall, we also sent ahead 2 individuals who had to wait there until midnight before the date was actually the date that their visas were prepared for. So, but I will also share that those days that we spent together as the 5 of us in Cambodia were truly the highlight of my experience.
It was phenomenal.
I still have the bracelet that you gave me. I still have, I love that. Mine is upstairs in my office, tucked on the corner of the photo I have of the five of us
Oh, of
at
course,
the
yeah.
Elephant Bar
Yeah.
in Siem Reap, and the beautiful card I have framed, as I said I would. You had this beautiful hand-painted card of Angkor Wat, which was just
Yeah.
such a special and spiritual experience. And then when we had the chance to visit the floating villages
Yeah.
and see something you and I could never experience in the USA together. What do you still recall about our experience overseas together?
God. Everything. I mean, it was just phenomenal. I mean, goodness. I think like, I don't know, just like there's a particular, I mean, whether it just be like the nature of like watching like, you know, the sun like rise on like Phuket, just like, you know, in Koh Yam Noi, or even just like the monkeys outside of that, the temple. Like just the nature like really stuck with me.
And the
even, like,
elephants.
and the elephants were phenomenal. And even like the nature, like even like when we were in like Bangkok in Thailand, just like the trees kind of just growing through the city, but also like it still like was very like they kind of coexisted together, like the technology and the nature. It was just like really fascinating.
And as a professor, there are very few times in my 25 years of teaching that I've been able to engage one-on-one with students. And that's my greatest joy.
Yeah.
Joy of missing out. That's my greatest joy, being able to know you not just as students, but as individuals, and really being able to engage with one another. And when you're in a class of 40 students, although I make every effort to know each of my students as such, it can't replace the joy that you have, especially when you're overseas in another environment, in a different environment. And one of the many things that, again, that I value about you, Jack, is that you're so open to those experiences. And I do think that that's also very typical of the special nature of William and Mary students.
Yeah. And I think it was cool to see how adapted everybody was in that situation. I mean, and it was interesting too, because I feel like when we were taking like, you know, the preliminary courses in state, like it wasn't like a whole lot of interaction between the groups, because it was only like, you know, every other Friday or so.
Yeah.
But then when we all were boots on the ground in Thailand, in Cambodia, you know, for those who were in Vietnam, when we were in Southeast Asia, everybody was just like best of friends, and that was such a tight knit group. Like, it was so much fun to see everybody
Truly
like, interact together.
supportive. And there were individuals that had dietary concerns,
Yeah, of
and
course.
individuals who had other concerns, and we just seemed to be so supportive and appreciative of each other, no matter what the circumstance. And I don't know that I asked you before. Had you done other study abroad experiences,
My
Jack?
first one.
That had been your first.
I was actually very like, and this is, I mean, it sounds ridiculous saying this now. I was very anti-study abroad for the longest time, because in my mind, it was
Jack
like, no,
Rizzo,
no, hear me out.
William and Mary
No,
is
hear me
the
out. Hear me
number
out.
one
I know we are. I know we are.
institution
That's why I'm
for
saying right now on the record,
study
like,
abroad.
I was saying study abroad. It was the greatest experience of my life. I was foolish. I was so foolish, but I've learned from my mistakes. Definitely study abroad. And my only reason was like, I didn't like, you know, if I was going to spend like this much money, then I want to do it on my own terms. But no, like, you're not going to have as much educational benefit, the connections you're going to make. I mean, just like, you know, you're not going to have someone who's going to guide you like through like such a vastly different culture and still make it feel like home. Like, it was such a beautiful, I mean, it's such an enriching and beautiful experience. So no, one of the best things, I think, like one of the greatest memories from my college career, as like I'm a senior and I'm finishing it out, like studying abroad was like the greatest thing I think I've ever done.
Well, and I think that going through those experiences and understanding that you can have difficulties, but you can grow through those challenges. And I mean, you are just making it happen.
Thank you.
And I had mentioned to you before, but I also want to mention it on the record. I'm so proud of you for being an Anderson Scholar.
Thank you.
And I'm so impressed with your willingness to continue to give back. Even though you're not necessarily a finance major, you're very involved with the Foley Center of Finance. You want to mentor other students. I know I'm always getting emails from you about opportunities and students, you know, opportunities for our students to engage. And as a professor, there's no greater reward for what I do than, you know, knowing that we've had those experiences together, knowing the challenges that you've went through and the resilience that you've shown to get to this point, and knowing how well you've done and how well I know you'll continue to do at Amazon and in your career moving forward.
Cambodia.
To Cambodia.